I'm Jonathan Biss, and the new record that I've just made is of Mozart Concerti, of the Concerti numbers 21 and 22, and it was recorded live with the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra in New York. This new disc is a move in a new direction in a lot of ways. Even though Mozart is music that I've been playing my whole life, in terms of recording, it was a new direction for me. It's also my first recording with orchestra. It felt like a very natural next step. I learned the 21st Piano Concerto when I was something like 10 years old and played it the first time when I was 17 and have been coming back to it at regular intervals. And what's so interesting is that each time I play it, it's unbelievable how different it seems. There's so much in it that your relationship with it is never static. Mozart is one of the composers that I feel closest to the sense of theater in this music, the sense of musical conversation. The piano concerti are, in a sense, the most characteristic works that he wrote. They have an incredible amount of energy, an ability to express any kind of emotion. He changes his mood more often and more quickly than almost any other composer. You never stay in one character for more than a few bars, and that's, for me, the reason that it was so wonderful to do it with the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, who play with so much spirit and so much positive energy. From the first time there was a discussion about this Mozart project, I had wanted to do it with the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, and I was really thrilled that it ended up being with them. All of the rehearsal was extremely democratic. They're very good about keeping every member of the orchestra involved in the process, and every member felt a kind of an ownership of the performances, which just, for obvious reasons, can't happen when you're playing with a symphony orchestra and a conductor.
Jonathan plays these works with naturalness and authority and thoughtful imagination. I think it's one of the reasons why it's so easy to play with him. His musical ideas come across very clearly, and it's very easy to understand. It's really wonderful to be able to do this now with Jonathan. I think people will hear that there's a wonderful collaborative spirit between Jonathan and the whole group. And so that lends itself to wonderful spontaneity of performance. When it gets right down to it, we all have to react very quickly to each other, Jonathan to us and us to Jonathan, and it worked so beautifully. It's really great.
I loved the end result, but much more importantly, it felt like the way we got there was so right. It was this whole sense of dialogue and journey and process. There's something about making this music in such a way where everyone has to listen. There was a real element of idealism about the way the sessions were run, and I have to say I feel very spoiled. I don't think it's going to be easy for me to play these pieces under other circumstances ever again. These pieces were written only a few months apart, and yet they're so different from one another. I mean, 467 is, above all, I would say, very witty. It has a lot of humor in it, a lot of quick energy, quick changes of character, long, unbroken lines, such a sense of dignity about it. The slow movement of 467 is really like an aria written for the piano. 482 couldn't be more different. It's very clearly instrumental music with serenade music in the winds. Also very, very tragic, and the whole sound of the orchestra becomes darker, broader in a sense, and the character of the music is also much broader. At the very, very end of the movement, after he's gone through this long set of variations expounding on the theme, he introduces a new theme. It's almost surreal. Not quite in major, not quite in minor, and it's one of the most affecting lines of music that I know. Every time I play it, I find that it's very difficult to continue breathing. In fact, when it was first performed, the audience was so astonished by it, they demanded the repetition of the movement right away. Before they went on to the last movement, they had to hear the slow movement of 482 again, and easy to understand why. I still feel like once is not enough. Mozart didn't have the courtesy to write down cadenzas for these two concerti, so we're left with having to commit our own sins. The music is really so sacred that every time you change a note, you feel like you've committed some sort of high crime. You can't have too much reverence for them because then you're afraid to play them. You experiment, and when it's right, you just sort of know it. Even having made this record, I still feel like I'm somewhere in my journey with these pieces. I hope to keep playing them as long as I play the piano. Most of what I'm doing when I'm working is trying to shrink the distance between my attitudes and my feelings and you know, what the piece is saying. Trying to come as close as possible to fulfilling the will of the composer. That's really what playing great music is about for me, is trying to bring myself as close to the music as I possibly can.